You are raising what I've once called unspeakable truths. They may be true, but they're so painful that they're unspeakable. And that inflames people. And people, let their anger get in the way of actually listening to what's being said. I think there are two big concerns. The first is, what is it we're trying to teach children? Again, it's that question, what is it for? And without proper consideration of what the curriculum is for and how you are going to teach it, with what materials, at what age, then I think the danger has to be that you're allowing people who have an unpleasant interest in children to manipulate this. I believe in sexual education in schools. I think it's very important. The question is, what sexual education? In Britain, we have a system whereby it is law that children are taught biology, the biology of reproduction, of puberty, of menstruation, of sexually transmitted diseases. That is mandatory in law, and I think that's a very good thing. There is a further curriculum which the government advises schools to teach, but it is not mandatory, and parents also have the right to say, I won't have my child taught with that. But even that curriculum, which does deal with the more difficult topics, does so by law in a framework which says you must consider this, you must deal with all of this within a moral framework. The big question for Croatia is, what is the purpose of your sex education curriculum? What is it there to do? What is it trying to do? And I asked that question in the Parliament yesterday. To me, it's a fairly basic question. And however many parliamentarians sat around and, I don't know that, move on. If you can't say what it's for, then you have a big problem. Any set of rules which are imposed without proper debate and proper information, that has to be dangerous. You wouldn't sign a contract that you have never seen. So why would you have a set of rules imposed on you that you can't see and can't challenge? I've made films and written books about child sexual abuse for many, many years. And somebody wrote to me and said, did I know about Kinsey and his use of pedophiles? And I said, no, I had no idea. And I did, as the person who wrote to me suggested. I looked in chapter 5 and I was astonished. It's clear, absolutely crystal clear, in his own words, that he was using pedophiles to sexually assault children and then record what the pedophiles said the children's responses were. And I knew as soon as I saw it that we should make this film, because Kinsey is an iconic figure. He's revered, he is the father of sex research, and his work is the basis of the modern understanding of sexuality. And yet here was this appalling record of the sexual assault, and in some cases I think you could call it torture, of children, masquerading as science. I took it to took the idea to one of the networks in Britain, and initially they said, well, surely, no, this can't be. And I showed the commissioning editor the book, and 5 minutes later, he commissioned the film. It took us about a year to make the film. There's an awful lot of detailed investigative research that went into it. And in the end, what we showed was that Kinsey had a long-lasting and continuing relationship with pedophiles, that he encouraged them to record what they were doing to children, which to my mind makes him complicit in the abuse of those children. And then he published unquestioningly what these pedophiles claimed to be evidence that children had enjoyed the experience. Nobody tried to challenge the facts that we showed in the film, but then it would be very hard to do that because many of them come from Kinsey himself. It would be madness to say, oh, these facts can't be true, when Kinsey himself had sat there and typed them out. When we made the film, before it aired, someone tried to have me fired from my job for having made the film, which is why I felt so strongly about what has happened to Carolina Cristo. Eventually the film was shown on British television. It got a very good response in the press and in people viewing it. The only criticism was from the person who tried to have me fired from my job for making this film. He said, Tim Tate is a campaigner against child abuse. Well, yes, I'm very happy to be a campaigner against child abuse because I don't think it's a very good thing. Journalists, and I'm a journalist, I'm a working journalist, I have been for 30 years, we're meant to give to the public difficult facts. We're not necessarily meant to say this is what you should believe, but our job is to educate the public by giving them facts. Carolina did that. And to be disciplined, to have her show taken away from her or moved because she did that, that's completely wrong. And it's to me, it's indicative of a mentality which is not democratic, which is not comfortable with difficult facts being brought out into the public arena. You can't stop free speech if you want to be a democracy. It would be unthinkable in Britain for the Prime Minister of Britain to stand up in Parliament as your Prime Minister stood up in Parliament and essentially trash the reputation of a journalist for bringing to light something which should be brought to light. The Kinsey Institute, which is still in existence and still going strong, describes Kinsey as the man who changed the world. The most dangerous thing, though, is that he purported to show that children are sexual beings from birth, and the only evidence he could put forward for this was what the paedophiles themselves said. That myth, because it is a myth, that children are sexual from birth, appears to me to have permeated all sex education post-Kinsey. There is an assumption, a wrong assumption, that children are sexual from birth and therefore we must reflect this in sex education. And I think that is simply wrong. I don't like to look at this as a conspiracy, but we have to accept the truth, the simple facts, that for 30 years, paedophile groups have organized themselves into mounting a campaign for paedophile rights. And they base this again on Kinsey's argument that children are sexual beings. I have a degree in theology. I believe in social democracy. I don't like conservative politics. My personal position is that I don't go to any church, any synagogue, any mosque. Yes, I do have spiritual beliefs, but I don't count myself as a religious person, and I don't like organised religion. I don't trust it. But I don't think this is about politics, not left-right politics or church-state politics. It's not about that. This is about the protection of children. And that must transcend all politics. This is a subject, child sexual abuse is a subject which inflames people's responses, it polarizes people. And that happens in every country. If we can't talk about this, if adults cannot talk about this in a reasonable way and explore the issues, how on earth are adults going to teach children about it?